Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Alpha radio show / podcast. We have a full house today after missing Jack and Alex last week in action. To be honest, guys, I was a little worried about the aftermath of your matchup in fantasy football. I was worried that you guys, took it to IRL and maybe had some beef. Maybe one of you ended up in the hospital after a fist fight or something, but you got to fill us in on that matchup.
Gentlemen.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about it.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. I have a little announcement, gentlemen. I'm sorry for my absence the last 2 weeks, but it is official that in my mind, I have won our league championship. Standings may say that I am in last place, but I put up a ungodly amount of points, aka a little over 120, against the guy right above me on the screen. And it was the best win I could ever have. It's probably the last win I'll get all year, but my team pulled through. They knew to come. They knew to come prepared, and we smoked Mean Machine.
And the record, his kicker had 21 points.
Whoa!
So he was a sandbag. He was sandbagging me the whole week. It was ridiculous.
It was fantastic. I will send a screenshot of that game to every week until next season.
Well, I still won the Super Bowl last year, Alex, so it doesn't matter that much.
That's last year. This is this year.
I'm also in the playoff contention now, and he's at the bottom of the league.
It doesn't matter. I've won.
It matters.
Yeah, Jack, I didn't know you were coming off a Super Bowl win.
I won both my leagues last year, boys.
Wow.
I know. I am still – shout out to my two commissioners who have yet to give me the trophy, and we have a WWE belt that I've yet to get. So one of these days I'll get those, and I'll bring them on the podcast. But shout out to Connor and Mike for just being losers and not getting me what I deserve.
Yeah.
Well, as always, it's good to have Jack and Alex back. JB, how are you feeling after this week? You got that Steeler gear pimped out after some big Steelers news today. Why don't you dive into that?
Yeah, I'll dive into the fact that I did win this week, 5-6. Probably not as bad as Alex, but not doing too good. But shout out to Jaylen Warren. He got me a good amount of points this week. But yeah, it's about time the OC left Pittsburgh. The Kenny's next, I guess. We'll see how he does the rest of the year, but I mean, like, Kenny wasn't nothing too crazy at all. So do you guys know what happens? Like, are we getting is Steelers getting a new OC, or is Mike Tomlin going to call the calls? I don't know.
Apparently the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey coach is coming over, Mr. Mike Sullivan.
Seriously?
They have the same name. They have the same name, right?
Did you hold on? He was way too serious when he asked that.
I thought maybe he knew some stuff about football too. So I was like, okay, serious? That's cool, right in the city,
True.
Yeah, I knew he was coming.
This is who you're supposed to take your fantasy football advice from. I thought a hockey coach would leave, a Stanley Cup winning team.
He was way too serious when he said.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't help myself and actually walk across the street basically to take a shitty job with the Steelers as the offensive coordinator. All right, man. Listen, yeah, I'm not looking forward to your advice this year. I'm just not. And the whole, like, they fired Canada, so I'm gonna pimp myself out in Pittsburgh stuff. That's what you did. I know you said before the show that's what you did.
You're like,
cold
in here, man. It's cold.
I just took a shower and brushed out my hair, and I thought I'd put on all this Pittsburgh Steelers gear before my football podcast. Sorry, guys, had to say that.
It's interesting that last time the Steelers fired a head coach or any sort of offensive coordinator was 1941.
Wow.
The guy fired himself.
I got that stat from Mr. Pat McAfee when I was listening to his show today.
Wasn't he also part owner and he fired himself?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see the fantasy impact of all of this. Maybe that's something we could discuss later in the episode. But yeah, I was definitely shocked to see that news this morning. we'll still ride it out with Kenny, but who knows how long that'll last. But I'll just wrap up this intro with a summary of my week. I'm currently 9-2 in first place in my redraft league. Still the only person that clinched so far. And people were texting in the GM, just give Dom the money already. I think they're trying to do some reverse psychology, like juju type shit, but I'm not claiming the league yet. Injuries happen every week. Speaking of Joe Burrow, Mark Andrews, Cooper Kupp's injured again. 3 big names that were injured this week. But yeah, that Joe Burrow injury was definitely, good news for Steelers fans that want the Steelers in the playoffs, but bad news for fantasy owners of people on the Bengals. So definitely some stuff we could discuss further in that episode. But why don't we hop into the studs of Week 11? And Jack, you could start off with this one.
Oh, nice. All right, so I got 3 here. Starting off, I have Mr. Calvin Ridley from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Dominant win over the Titans this week. 9 targets, 7 receptions for 103 yards and 2 tutties. First week, he's been kind of the fantasy player everybody was expecting him to be. A lot of people were drafting him high. He's moved up to wide receiver 28. So big week for my boy Calvin. Another guy I got, Saquon Barkley. Go Giants. Chris, don't log on, but I picked the Giants guy. Oh, my God. It's Saquon Barkley. He had a good week for once. 14 carries, 83 yards. But most of his fantasy points came from the air. 5 targets and 4 receptions for 47 yards and 2 receiving tutties. Mr. Italiano DeVito had himself a game. Getting Saquon involved. Big win against the Commandos. Saquon's up to RB15. Lastly, Mr. Tank Dell. They had a close win against the Arizona Cardinals. I have 10 targets, 8 receptions for 149 yards and 1 TD. CJ Stroud, as we talked about in many a podcast, has been just putting up numbers. Rookie of the year, he's got it in the bag. Give him the money now, Dom. Seriously, I think he's up there. Tank Dell being CJ Stroud's number 1 target. So those are my 3 studs. That's a great list, Jack. Thanks, guys.
I could don't money on him putting Tommy DeVito in there.
No,
I mean, hey, Tommy
started this week.
scored 3 TDs before Kenny ever did. That's crazy. I don't think anyone knew who Tommy DeVito was before 2 weeks ago.
Hey, he's a Syracuse legend.
Oh, okay. Pardon me.
Come on, Dom, do your research. You got to know the people coming out of this league, coming into the NFL. Everyone knew Tommy DeVito was going to be a star coming in, right?
Yeah, because he plays for the Giants.
Okay.
Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, okay. Oh, Jack's taking over. Dom, you better get the reins back on this. Okay, boys. I'm going to start with Mr. Jahmyr Gibbs. He's really coming into his own, running back from Detroit, 36 rush yards, 59 receiving yards on 6 catches, 2 tutties. Detroit's coming in hot, 8-2 right now. He's really becoming a dynamic weapon in the air and on the ground. We're going to go Mr. Jordan Love, deciding to wake up a little bit over the last couple of weeks. 322 yards, 2 touchdowns, big win against the Chargers at home. Good to see a little confidence in him going forward. And then we're going to go a little special shout out, not just a full defensive unit, but we're going to go with cornerback Bland from Dallas Cowboys. He recorded his 4th pick 6 of the season, boys. Got to give a little shout out to an individual defensive player today. How about you, JB?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I got Jaylen Warren as one of my studs for this week. He had only 9 carries, 129 yards rushing, a touchdown, 16 yards in the air against a, really good Browns defense. I expect his production to go up with a new OC coming in. The last 4 games, he's had less carry attempts than Najee Harris and still have more runs. So I just expect and hope that they start using him a little bit more. And then another stud I got from Thursday Night Football, Lamar Jackson. Beat that Bengals team. We all saw Burrow got hurt, but Lamar did play really well. He had 264 yards, 2 touchdowns. and like 50 yards on the ground. So Lamar, who has been pretty quiet, as Dom mentioned, I think last episode or a couple episodes before, he showed out in that game and finally got over 20 fantasy points. So got to put Lamar up there. That's what I got from my studs. What you got, Dom?
Yeah, solid list, everyone. I had Tank Dell. We already talked about him. Jaylen Warren. I got to mention my guy, Trevor Lawrence. I know I told you to bench him last week, but this week I told you to start him full force. He got 32 fantasy points, finally delivering. Hasn't been very good all year. In that 10 to 20 fantasy point range. He was sitting at QB 19 before his last game. So finally silencing the haters or, the tough love GMs like myself. So I have to mention Trevor Lawrence. And I'm also going to mention Joshua Dobbs. He only had 18 points this week, but he was traveling to Denver. That's always a tough place to play in. And he still delivered with, some valuable points. And I have some interesting stats here. He's QB number 7 on the year, and he didn't even start the year as QB1. He has more points than Tua, Mahomes, Jared Goff, Trevor Lawrence, and Russell Wilson. Those are some pretty big fantasy names.
Dog.
Yeah, he's a dog right now. And overall, in all of, out of all the players this year, he's player number 13 in fantasy points. So that's pretty big for someone who probably went undrafted heading into the year. Last but not least, I have Cortland Sutton. He has 8 TDs silently. He only has 500 yards, but he's definitely Russell Wilson's go-to guy. He throws it up to him in the end zone every game. And he's pretty tall. He's 6'4", so I think that relationship will continue to develop. I think Russell Wilson's fighting for a playoff spot, number 7. I know like the Bills, the Steelers, they're kind of trending in the wrong direction right now. So, and the Broncos are trending in the right direction. So I think that's definitely a QB wide receiver relationship to look into, as the year continues. So I got to mention those people. And yeah, why don't we transition to the duds now? Oh man, I really want to talk about this guy, but JB, why don't you start off with this one?
I hope I don't take your person, but on my team, I have Jalen Waddle, and I won this week by 3.5 points, and that's really because of this dude. He's just so bad. He right out of the bye, I thought he was going to do something, and he came out, got 55 yards on 4 receptions, on 8 targets. So it's pretty disappointing. I don't know what I'm going to do there, but figure something out. Maybe we'll figure something out when we talk about the waiver wire stuff. And then another dud I have is on that Bears team, Cole Kmet. Even though Justin Fields didn't do bad coming back, Cole Kmet didn't do much of nothing. 3 receptions for 20 yards. And for someone who earlier in the year had like 24 points and then 20 points with Tyson Bagent, he just hasn't been performing since then. And Justin Fields coming back, I thought it was going to do something for him and didn't do anything. So that's who I have for my duds. Alex, if you want to go ahead.
I'm going to start out with Derrick Henry. He's the most frustrating player to fan for on a fantasy team, being that he's on one of my fantasy teams. The man either rushes for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, or he rushes for under 40 yards. There's like no in between with him. He had 38 yards rushing against Jacksonville, and especially for a team where it's still a little bit of a quarterback question, seeing what Will Levis can do now that Tannehill's been benched. You would think that the run game would be a focal point for them, and he's getting decent carries, but it's like next game he'll probably run for 150 yards, and the next game after that he'll run for 30 yards. So he's just way too inconsistent this year, especially this past week. And then we're going to stick with the running backs. Josh Jacobs, he had under 40 yards. He had 39 yards rushing for Vegas. He's another one where he either has a great game, multi-touchdown game, or he averages like 2 yards a carry. So big names, very inconsistent play this year. Those are my 2 duds for the week. Go ahead, Jack.
Alex, shout out to your new digs there. For all of our listeners, Alex moved out of his parents' basement.
Oh, yeah.
Big time. And he's got a standing desk. Wow. He
Monitor.
walked on a little treadmill.
Oh, yeah, I'm on it right
Working on
now.
those gluteus maximus.
Yeah, using little 2-pound weights to run, too.
Oh,
You know?
yeah, baby. Ankle weights.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, I got 3 duds. This isn't really a fair one, but Cooper Kupp got hurt in the second quarter, so he put up a solid, 2.1 fantasy points against the Seahawks. Another guy got Deontay Johnson. I mean, I don't draft Steelers in fantasy football religiously. I live by that. I die by that. I mean, I don't really die by that because they're not good investments. But he had 8 targets for a measly 2 receptions for 16 yards. I mean, we know Kenny struggles. And Deontay. I mean, I was talking to the security guard at work. Me and him are boys. We talk sports. And he was just saying how Deontay's got to step up in terms of the Steelers. Like, we need some veteran guys to step up. He's a veteran on this team. Needs to do something. We can't be relying on Najee and Pickens. So, just for Steelers listeners. And then my last guy, I mean, he might as well have just taken the day off. Mr. Gabe Davis. He had 0 points, 0 targets, 0 everything. Wasn't targeted a single freaking time. They had a dominant win over the Jets, and he didn't even see a single target. So, big dud there. He was sitting right in my flex position, so I somehow weaseled out a win. But those are my duds. Also, shout out random note, Aaron Rodgers, potential comeback day, December 2nd.
Oh, they need it.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
That's what he's saying. At least back to practice, December 2nd.
Yeah, I saw that. I also saw that he was holding a bong on the field, and then he broke the bong. Did you see that?
I think it was a bottle of tequila or something. But.
Dom, do you think that they would let that happen?
Who knows, man? I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. He's doing all those weird
he's
retreats and stuff. So
maybe this is ayahuasca.
Spiritual voodoo. Can I throw a little debate topic in there, Dom? Not to mess with your schedule here. Is that cool?
Throw it in, man. Throw it in.
This is interesting because it got brought up in me and Alex's league this year. So we have this set up in our league. We got 12 Yinzers in this league. And I'm currently sitting in 6th place, 6-5 record. And this guy, Mike DePasquale, throws in, and we had this last year, but the 6th spot in the playoffs goes to the person with the highest points for. No matter the record. So, let me look here. So there's a guy in 8th place that has the highest points for. So if the playoffs started today, he would get in and I would get booted.
Whoa.
I'm interested, JB, Dom, your thoughts. Alex, you too, I guess. Not that I care about your opinion.
Problem because you're in 6th place. If you're in 5th, you're not even caring about this.
This is just a debate topic, Alex.
He's just butthurt right now.
So I know some leagues. I know some leagues that have the third person. The person with the most points for automatically wins 3rd place in the entire league. So there's a prize for 1st, 2nd, and then 3rd, and the person with the most points for automatically wins 3rd. So you could also win 1st place and 3rd place if you win the league and you have most points for. Wow. I honestly like the points for thing because most of the time it's 6th place is still going to get in because the person with the points for is usually in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd place, the person with the most points for. So I don't think that it's that big of a deal. But if it's something that's getting added in the middle of the league, then that's a little wild. But if it's something that was discussed beforehand, then I don't mind it.
Jack, what do you think about this?
Dude, I don't like these little comments we got going on from the guy in the studio. But I don't know. I get it for sure. I mean, the highest points for JB, like you're saying. I mean, you're supposed to have the best teams in the playoffs. So, I definitely respect it. I mean, points for is always, it just shows how good your team are. And then, some teams go off. But also, I kind of like the luck of the draw. I mean, just the reality of having a good record. Because, fantasy at the end of the day is luck. So, if you don't think that's the case, then you're just wrong. So, I respect it. Like Alex said, I'm a little mad because I'm in 6th place right now. But I'd have to agree with it. Alex, what are your thoughts? Stop looking at me like
Well,
that.
considering this rule has been implemented in our league for forever now,
It's like 2 years. What do you mean?
what are you talking about? It's been like 4 or 5. That's like an eternity.
Yeah,
He-
sorry, my
he
team
had-
is so good. I was never worried about it.
He had no issue with this before, so he's just butthurt right now. But I'm fine with it, mainly because I think it's just interesting. It makes everyone else a little more involved, and everyone still has a little incentive to, even toward the end, like everyone's like still in the hunt, even if you're like 7th or 8th place. And there's a lot of times in these leagues where everyone's like, there's so many teams right in the middle who are like 500 or like 1 game back of each other, and that's like a good way of splitting hairs. I mean, the one time, I think it was the first year in our league that happened. I think there's 12 teams in our league. I'm pretty sure the 9th place team got in because his points for were like 4th in the league, but he had the most points against. So that's just why he just happened to play against every high scoring team that year. But he still put up like unreal numbers. So I think it's fine, especially this year. I really hope it's implemented this year to the full effect.
Yeah, I definitely think rules like that are always enjoyable, like spicing it up each year. If I was in Jack's position, I'd be so pissed, honestly. So I understand where he's coming from.
You didn't earn it.
Ooh.
You can't. You lost to a team in me who
Well,
won.
let's move on.
I know.
Next question.
Hold on. I scored 120 points 1 time this year. I
know.
can barely scratch 90 points with my depleted roster, and then
So what did you score last week? Let me check.
I scored like 90 points.
He scored 98 points. Yeah. Ridiculous.
But guess what?
Anyways, Dom.
One.
Carry on.
All right, so why don't we hop into the injury report? I know we kind of teased some big injuries earlier in the episode, but I think it'll be interesting to talk about, the fantasy impact of, these players being out all year and seeing what players maybe people could look at now that they're out. So why don't we start off with Joe Burrow, the biggest injury of the week. I think this could affect Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, and even, T. Higgins. And so do you think any of these players are going to gain a boost in fantasy points because Joe Burrow is out?
I think Mixon could. I think they could run game a little bit more. I know he's kind of a hybrid, but I feel like if anything, you almost always see a little bit more run game when the backup quarterback gets in. I mean, because Chase had two, even though he had a touchdown last week, he only had 2 catches.
Yeah, Jamar Chase did terrible last week. He was on my duds list. Even though he scored a touchdown, he only had 9 points. But I don't think their new quarterback is, shown enough to confidently start Jamar Chase and expect him to be that wide receiver 1 at this point. But yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Joe Mixon definitely sees an uptick. We're already seeing a trend in the right direction with him. He had 21 points last week. So I could see them, using him as a workhorse moving forward if the passing game isn't very good right now with the new QB. Jack, JB, what do you think about the Bengals situation?
Bengals season is over. Let's just be honest here. Yeah, their season's over. I see them trying a lot of stuff out this season, honestly. So I don't even want to speculate if I think somebody's the receivers' performances are definitely going to go down. This quarterback isn't going to sling the rock like Joe Burrow is going to. But I mean, I feel like they might try and throw a little bit as well, and they have the receiving core out there. So why wouldn't you try and just get them the ball and see what they can do on the run? Even if it's like a slant or a screen pass or something like that, you might as well try and get it in these talented Jamar Chase or T. Higgins or Boyd's hands and just see what they can do. So Mixon's production, I see it going up. How much I see it going up is hard to say, but that's kind of what I see happening. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, definitely the same. Mr. Jake Browning is the old backup. I think he threw the ball like 14 times once he got put in. So, yeah, I think they'll definitely rely on the run game. I think T. Higgins has also been out a couple weeks. So I think they're down a main wide receiver anyways. And I thought that helped my boy Tyler Boyd out, but he's been putting up poopy numbers. So, yeah, I think what you guys said is definitely what I'm hoping for as a Joe Mixon fantasy owner. They got a matchup against the Lurs this week. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Steelers are terrible against backup quarterbacks, so might be a good week to pick up anybody.
All right, next up we have Mark Andrews, hovering around, tight end 1 to tight end 3, year in and year out. Definitely Lamar Jackson's number 1 target for the past game over the past few years. They confirmed that he's most likely out for the season. How will this affect Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers? Are they going to rely on the run game more? Is Gus Edwards going to score 10 more touchdowns? I cannot believe Gus Edwards has 10 touchdowns already. Like that's leading the league right now. I think Raheem Mostert he has 11, but Gus Edwards is close behind. Alex, why don't you start off with this one?
I think you buy a little more stock into Zay. I mean, most people seems like are starting Zay Flowers as it is, probably in like a flex position, like a wide receiver 3 if you have 3 wide receivers. But then I think you got to start. I know we'll probably talk about a little bit more. I think you got to put a little more stock into OBJ and Rashad Bateman. I know OBJ is a little banged up, but he's had a big game, first 100-yard game in 50 million years for him. But I think you got to buy a little stock in him. Still Baltimore's run game is still a little bit by committee. Like Edwards and Hill, they seem to kind of split carries, even though Gus Edwards seems to be more of like that third down back and goal line back. That's why he gets so many of those touchdowns. But I think having still a running back by committee type locker room is going to put a little more stock into the receiving group.
Yeah, I think his backup is Isaiah Likely. I picked him up. Yeah, I have Mark Andrews on my team. I have Mark Andrews and Joe Burrow on my team. So my record is already in the garbage. So this is just the cap to my season.
Shit, that's definitely hurting you then.
I know. But so, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think they're still a run-heavy offense. I know I don't know how much Lamar's been throwing this year. I know it's been their offensive coordinator coming in to try to switch it up. But, yeah, I think I agree. I think OBJ is opening a lot of leagues on the waiver wire. I know we'll get to that eventually. But I think, yeah, he's worth a look. He's still got some good years left in him. But, yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what the Ravens can do. I don't think it'll affect their production much. They were very impressive this last week, and they're a scary team.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't see it affecting their production that much either. If anything, I see Lamar starting to run the ball a little bit more himself. If we're being honest here, he's mainly the running team for them. He runs the ball more than the running back does. So I see him maybe getting a little more carries himself, running it around the field. But I mean, like that wide receiver core is pretty stacked if you look at it from an outside perspective. And Likely when he came in, I don't think did he get a reception? Does anybody know? I don't know. But I picked him up as well. So Lamar loves throwing to his tight end, so I think he's going to keep throwing to this dude Likely, and hopefully he makes something out of it. But yeah, I don't see it affecting the production too much.
All right, next up we have some Rams players, and then we can wrap up this injury report. So Cooper Kupp right now is day-to-day, big fantasy name heading into the season. Still seems to be injury prone right now. Matt Stafford is also in and out of games with his back issues. And Kyren Williams, if you remember earlier in the year, he had a handful of 20-point games, and he was sitting at running back 5 before he was out for the past 5 or 6 weeks. So he's coming back in full force this week. How does this impact fantasy owners of some of these players, such as Puka, Kyren Williams? And what are your thoughts on Cooper Kupp moving forward in fantasy? So a couple big names that people have. Jack, why don't you start off with this one?
Yeah, I feel like we're unfortunately used to Mr. Cooper Kupp being hurt. So I'm sure fantasy managers that have Puka, aren't very affected by it because they're pretty interchangeable in general. I'm interested to see. I don't know how hurt Stafford is, but if Carson Wentz gets some plays, that'd be kind of sweet. I think the Rams are struggling in general. I don't know who their matchup is this week. Looks like it's the Cardinals. Yeah, they just have a lot more to figure out, and I think injuries. Yeah, I hate to say that there's not. I mean, I don't know. Just seeing Matthew Stafford still just chuck the ball down the field, like he has. I mean, he's not even a good fantasy player to pick up, so he's not worth the look. But I think we're used to Cooper Kupp being hurt, so Puka I think is just going to take on that role more. We've kind of seen this. We've kind of played through this before, and I think they just stick to what they're doing, at least for fantasy production wise. So I think it's same old with the LA Rams.
Alex, what about you?
I also don't have that much more to add from what Jack said. I actually completely agree with him. Congratulations. Yeah. No, I think it's just the mere fact that they caught lightning in a bottle when they went on that Super Bowl run, and it's the simple fact that they're just a really old team, and it's showing right now. And especially for a wide receiver who gets hurt, like big time injuries for wide receivers, they end up just becoming nagging over and over. So you almost think for fantasy owners, you probably went one of two ways. You gambled and picked Cooper Kupp as if he wasn't hurt going into the season, knowing he was coming back. And if he was fine, then he probably was going to be amazing for you. Or you waited, or your whole fantasy league waited to pick him up later, knowing that this is probably going to happen again. That you're basically playing Russian roulette with him, because it's like if he's healthy, he's best player, he's best wide receiver in the league, arguably. But if not, he's playing like 4 games a year. And it's the same thing with Stafford too. Stafford's either 4,500 yards a year or he's playing like 8 games healthy. So I feel like you just got to sell your stock on all those Rams players. And if they're healthy, they're healthy. But I would say if you're trying to make a fantasy push, I wouldn't be playing them. JB, what do you think?
What are you thinking?
I don't know. I agree with you, Alex. I think everything's pretty straightforward here. Puka, I kind of feel bad for, hopefully. I mean, like, I still think Puka's like amazing, but I didn't even know the Stafford got hurt, so this is news to me. But Carson Wentz, I guess he can still do some stuff, They have Matt Stafford as their QB, and then they have another old backup QB. What are the Rams even doing over there? So
like it was I think Stetson Bennett was their backup or something like that, and even then, you picked the like oldest rookie coming out of the draft. Like the rookie's like 5 years younger than your 13-year veteran.
Oh gosh, yeah. The Rams they just got a lot. They just got a lot to figure out. The only 2 teams they only beat one good team, and they beat them twice, which is the Seahawks. So I don't know what's going on over there. They got a lot to figure out. But I agree with Alex. Probably wouldn't want to start anybody on that team, really.
Yeah, I have to agree with you guys. I'm definitely out on the wide receivers just because the quarterback play is up in the air right now. I think I'm going to go and start Kyren Williams this week just because he did pretty well for me early in the year. So I'm going to have to put him in my flex position. It's going to be between Jaylen Warren and Kyren Williams, though. So it's going to be a game time decision. But why don't we head into the stardoms for week 12? JB, what do you have?
Well, I'm going to start Jaylen Warren this week. I don't have much of a choice, to be honest with you. But like I said earlier, I think the new OC will use him. I mean, like, he's the best player on the team, so I expect him to get more carries than Najee this week for once. And he's as good of a dual threat as you get. He passing, he could break out on the passes, or he can run the ball, so you get the passing yards, you get the rushing yards. And I think the last 2 games he scored, so he's finally starting to find the end zone now. So yeah, I'm starting Jaylen Warren, especially against the Bengals, who don't have a good rushing defense at all. I think they have the second worst in the league. So if Jaylen Warren was able to put up 120 on the Browns, I'm excited to see what he can do against the Bengals. And then another starter I got is my dude Josh Dobbs against the Bears, division game home, and the Bears have one of the worst passing defenses. So, I expect Josh Dobbs to go out there and sling it, and we'll see what Justin Fields can do on the other side. But I'm giving the edge to Dobbs to put up the points here. So that's what I got from my startums. Alex?
I'm going to start with a backup running back, probably going to get a lot more touches this week. We're going with Zach Charbonnet, running back Seattle. Kenneth Walker, he's a little questionable with an oblique injury. Charbonnet, I was looking in most fantasy leagues, he's projected a little under 13 points going into this week. Games at home against San Fran, probably going to get some more touches, and since it's an injury-ridden league for running backs this year, got to get all the points you can get, so go with Zach Charbonnet. I'm going to go with Ty Chandler, also backup running back, Minnesota. You got Alexander Madison. He just came out of concussion protocol. I know he played this week, but Ty Chandler also got some touches. He's had 10-plus fans in the last 2 games, and they're playing at the Bears. The Bears are number 25 giving up points to running backs. So a lot of things in their favor to play Ty Chandler if you need a flex or a running back too. And I'm going to go with Mr. Gardner Minshew. Indianapolis quarterback. They're playing Tampa. Tampa gives up the 3rd most points to fantasy quarterbacks, and he's projected 18 points. So if you need a quarterback, go get Minshew Mania, baby. How about you, Jack?
How many points has Ty Chandler scored the past couple games?
Like 10 plus, I think.
10 plus. I'm pretty sure it's around 10. So if your bar is as low as Alex's, is it like that 10 point? I mean, you're trying to stick with last place. I guess. Stick with those waiver pickups or starters.
Last checked, half of the running backs in this league are like dead.
Well,
that is true.
10 points isn't going to cut it in my standards. So because the standards are standard. So
well, you lost.
All right, you're saying it's my turn. Okay, the Dolphins team. I have just the Dolphins team against the Jets. So if you have any of the people on the Miami Dolphins team,
the whole Dolphins team,
the whole
entire team. Jets are just bad. Yeah. So I do have a little note here in my notes. That's where you keep your notes in your notes. But it's coming down to playoff season with fantasy football. And I know this isn't like a favorable / it's a little sketchy, but like people are not really paying attention to the waiver wire these days. And you can really start looking at defenses and those matchups. They try to sneak those like every week. Just pick up the top defense, throw them in your league. I know we debated a while ago. I know we don't really like defenses in leagues, but they can change. They can make or break wins. That's what we're here to get. So a little side strategy you can look at doing. I've done it before. I won 2 championships last year. I beat Alex in the championship. Another guy, I have Derrick Henry. Alex, you talked about him. He made some good points, I guess. But they're playing against the Carolina Panthers, 31st ranked defense. So hoping for a bounce back, like Alex said. Hate to agree with him, but he either has a high or a low game. I'm looking for a high game out of Derrick Henry. Lastly, I think, Dom, you mentioned Mr. Courtland Sutton. He's been Russell's go-to guy, and he's also scored a touchdown in his last 5 games. So we're going to keep the streak going, Courtland Sutton. And that's what I got for my startums.
Solid. So speaking of defenses, I'm going to start off with a defense.
Ooh.
This defense is only owned in 50% of the leagues. And I'm not sure if people know how good this defense is, but I'm starting the Kansas City Chiefs defense. They're ranked number 5 on fantasy points. They're versing the Raiders. And they're coming off a pretty harsh loss against the Eagles. So I feel like they're going to come in with a vengeance. And I was looking at the stat behind the 49ers. They've allowed the second least amount of points for people who they're versing. So I thought that was very interesting. People usually think that Kansas City is an offensive story. This year, it seems to be more defensive. They don't really have a lot of go-to wide receivers this year. And Travis Kelce seems to be, not the most stellar player he is, but he's still a solid player for a tight end. And did you see that news report that he's debating on retiring like every day?
Yeah.
That was like crazy because I expected him to play till he was like 40 just because he has Mahomes. But
he'll be able to sit on Taylor Swift's money. That's all.
Yeah, Taylor Swift is sucking the soul or sucking something out of him. I don't know.
Whoa.
It's a kid show.
So what happens when he doesn't wear a hat?
You knew I was.
Yeah,
Just like that one. He would come in at that point, you inappropriate person.
No, this was classic. I'm the producer of the show. I'm sitting here just enjoying watching you guys, listening. I got my feet up on the desk. I'm actually almost a half asleep. It's not because you're boring or anything, and then I hear the only words I hear are, he's gonna suck something out of her, or she's gonna. I have no idea, but thanks for waking me up. I probably would have missed the end of the show.
Who would have thought Dawn would pull that out?
Man, I don't know what gets in me sometimes, but
all right.
All right, I'm going to double down on Zay Flowers. Mark Andrews out, so I think Zay Flowers is going to be that wide receiver 1 in the rookie class now that he is out. So I'm going to double down on him, starting him this week. Also starting Kyron Williams, as I mentioned. They're going to have to run heavy in LA just because the passing game isn't as stellar as we would think. And I'm going to mention Jahmyr Gibbs. We know he's a baller, but last 4 games, he has over 20 points, which is pretty good for running backs this year just because that position seems to be just trash this year.
Is David Montgomery back?
He is back, and he didn't do good last week. So I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely taking over that number 1 role. And I don't know if a lot of people expected it. I know people thought he was the second best running back in the class, but he definitely seems to be doing better than Bijan. And I know a lot of people in multiple leagues I'm in, they took Bijan top 5, which was pretty big gamble. But and last but not least, that's all I got for stardoms this week. Why don't we head over to the situms? I only have 2 guys on my list, so I'll just start off with this one. I'm going with Chris Olave off a bye week. That Atlanta defense is sneaky. People, they don't really trust Atlanta a lot, but their defense is pretty solid. And Derek Carr's banged up. We don't really know who's going to be that quarterback. So I'm sitting Chris Olave, swapping him out with Zay Flowers this week. Hopefully that works in my favor. And I'm also benching Derrick Henry. We already mentioned him, but 2 back-to-back weeks with less than 5 points. And the Titans are most likely going to be playing from behind the rest of the year just because they're a pretty bad team. So usually when you're playing behind, you don't get a lot of touches in the run game. Not really sure how, Derrick Henry's season is going to end up. I'm sure he'll end up in the top, 20 just because that position is pretty rough this year, but not confident starting him moving forward. So he's one of my situms this week. Alex, why don't you go ahead?
I'm going to go with Mr. Sam Howell, even though he is.
That's your boy.
No, I know.
Dude, he went to UNC. He's a Tar Heel, bro. You're going to go against him? It's like the baby blue, man.
I have to. I have to. He's like top 5 quarterback in fantasy right now, but he's getting a little turnover prone, boys. And I'm not liking this right now. And I know really he's only probably top 5 in fantasy is because Washington's always, again, playing from behind, and he's throwing the ball 50 times a game. But with him being a little more turnover prone, and they're at Dallas on Thanksgiving, Dallas only is like the 6th best against fantasy quarterbacks. Gotta sit him. Gotta sit him. I can't play him this week. I don't have faith in him. I'm sorry. And then I gotta go with my boy, just like my boy Steve Smith says, Jerry Jeudy sucks. Seems like Cortland Sutton and Russell Wilson have much more chemistry right now. Jerry Jeudy, he's been having kind of the yips catching the ball recently. So I would say he isn't even eclipsed. The most he's scored this year is 13 fantasy points. And even for being a wide receiver 2 on his own team, that's pretty damn bad. So and they're playing Cleveland. Cleveland gives up the 3rd least wide receiver points in fantasy. I think it's just a recipe for disaster, even if you're looking to play him in the flex position, which I feel like in most leagues, that's all he would be if you start him. So I got to say, Jerry Jeudy, sit down. JB.
So yeah, to go off your Sam Howell point, I got a bet on them.
Ooh.
I got plus 11 prime time. All right. So root for me, boys. That doesn't hit, it'll be a sad day. Just had to put that out there. But
wait, the spread is 11.
11.
Oh, they'll cover. They'll cover.
Yeah,
that.
that's a big spread for prime time.
They'll cover.
Yeah. So, hoping Sam Howell can at least do something for me. But I'll get to my sit-ems now. So I know Jack was saying start everybody on the Dolphins team. But I'm saying to sit Raheem Mostert. Okay. Hear me out. Okay. The Dolphins head coach said that Achane should most likely be back. Okay.
Let's go.
I see Raheem's usage going down a little bit, and given his lackluster performance this past week, he had like 80 yards on like 20 something carries. So I assume that Achane is going to get a good usage cut into Raheem's time. And they are playing the Jets, but like the Jets defense is supposed to be pretty good, right? I mean, like I know what the Bills did to him, but that was mostly Josh Allen through the air throwing 3 touchdowns. So they're playing the Jets, which the Jets defense isn't terrible. So I expect Raheem Mostert not to do too well with Achane coming back. So he's one of my sit-ems. And then another sit-em I got is Goff, Jared Goff. Okay. Listen, okay, he's quietly been declining inside of fantasy. Outside of the Chargers game where he went crazy, he's only averaging 12 fantasy points a game. And they're taking on the Packers, which have one of the best passing defenses. So I say to sit Goff this week against the Packers. That's what I got. I don't know how you guys feel about my picks, but that's what I got. Jack, what are your sit-ems?
I got 2 here. I got Mr. James Cook, running back from
Wait. James Cook, like your MVP.
Yeah, like my boy James Cook. I know he can have an off week. It's okay. My team can improvise. But they're playing against that Eagles defense, which is a tough defense, away game, I believe. So yeah, I have a sit-up for James Cook, and then I don't like Baker Mayfield, so I have Baker Mayfield on here.
Oh yeah.
He's going up against the Colts, 12th ranked defense. He threw the ball 45 times last week. I don't think he's very accurate. He's also had an interception in 6 of his last 8 games. So Baker Mayfield, I know the Bucs are not playing very well in general. I know their offense isn't producing. They got a couple old wide receivers out there. So Baker Mayfield, I know he's like middle of the pack. I think he's quarterback 15. But yes, those are my sits. Well, quarterback, running back. Dom, did you go? Yeah, you started. But
yeah, I have one last guy to mention. I know he's on everyone's minds. Like this is the wide receiver everyone thinks about week in and week out. I'm going to mention Hollywood Brown. 2 back-to-back weeks with dud performances now that Kyler Murray's back. 4 points, wide receiver 1 with your star quarterback coming back. You got to give him some help, Kyler Murray. Come on. Help Kyler Murray out. Rondale Moore, he's outperforming him. I might even pick up Greg Dork or Dortch. Some people like to pronounce the name, but
rude, calling him a dork.
But yeah, come on, Hollywood Brown. I mean, you're the star wide receiver on that team. Like, come on, it's time for you to ball out, especially because I need you to perform well on my fantasy team. So anyway, just wanted to mention the good old Marquise Brown.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
surprising because the Cardinals haven't been playing too bad, you know.
Yeah, I know,
So,
right? It's
He just hasn't been being used.
yeah, Kyler Murray, he has those rushing touchdowns, but not too many passing touchdowns starting out right now, but hopefully that'll get better. Next up, we got the fantasy games of the week. Some couple good games. Jack, why don't we start off with your most hyped fantasy game of the week and talk about the impacts?
My hyped games of the week are for all tens of our fans that are playing in some turkey bowls this week for Thanksgiving. All the families getting together, the boys coming out to play each other, to get dirty, a little tackle football, get a little injured before dinner time.
Do you guys have a turkey bowl, Jack? You got one you're going to?
Oh, we used to run one back in the day, but then we started getting our AARP cards, and we don't really do that much anymore.
His fantasy points in these games were terrible.
Oh, it was unreal. I was so good.
I
was doing so many trick plays by myself.
I have my AARP card, by the way.
Well, we knew. We knew.
Yeah, we did. That's why we don't do turkey bowls. Chris,
If
you
you
do turkey
guys-
bowls?
No, I look like I eat turkey bowls every day, but I just wanted you to know that don't slight the AARP discount.
Hey man,
That's some good stuff.
Brian, that's our sponsor. Roll the commercial.
My 83-year-old mother bought me that when I turned 50. She thought it was just the greatest thing. Son, I'm so proud of you. You're 50. I bought you a 5-year AARP membership.
That's love right there.
Great.
It's coming down the pike for every single one of you guys.
Oh,
Yep,
Your
except
mom's
maybe
a great
Dom.
woman.
Yeah, except maybe Dom.
All right. Well, my actual game of the week is Ravens versus the Chargers. Sunday Night Football. Carrie Underwood singing.
Oh yeah.
And I like the Ravens here. Chargers are just not good, but they put up points. So I like the Ravens this week. I like their high-powered offense. I don't think, like we mentioned, Andrew's injury is going to do much for them. I think they're going to keep it rolling. JB, how about you?
I didn't really think too much on this one. I was gonna say Eagles-Bills, but I honestly think the Eagles blow them out, to be honest with you. I don't think that's going to be the best game. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say the Bears-Vikings. Justin Fields didn't do too bad. It's two young quarterbacks. We'll see how they go out against each other. Do I expect it to be high scoring? I'm not sure. I think Vikings will put up some points. It comes down to can Justin Fields stay with them. So that's my game of the week. What do you got, Dom?
so as you know, I like to. How do I put this politely?
Oh, jeez. You like to do a lot of stuff.
You're right, but I favor heavily. Let's just put it that way. The Texans. So I'm gonna go with game of the week: Texans versus Jags. Definitely a lot of a big implication in the real world. They're fighting for number one in that division. But, I love to watch CJ Stroud sling that of his.
Do you got something to tell us, Dom? I mean, there's been way too many references
Just some
recently.
comments. here and there.
He's on holiday mode right now.
Dom had a couple shots before the show or something.
He's really letting his hair down today.
Dom's he's coming into his own, boys.
Yes.
He's starting to realize who he really is.
Boys becoming a man.
That's right.
Dom, I got two closets right behind me, man.
Yeah, pick one for God's sake. Pick one.
But yeah, I mean, I love watching CJ Stroud just get on that field, sling that big arm of his. And I kind of want to see him beat my guy, Trevor Lawrence, who is my number one QB. But hopefully Trevor Lawrence double downs on his performance last week. So that's my game of the week. I think it's going to be high scoring. Alex, what about you?
I'm going with the Washington-Dallas game, Thanksgiving Day. I think I want to say I think that there's going to be a lot of fantasy points being thrown around. I know I said sit Sam Howell, but I think it's still going to be enough for play all the other Washington receivers. I think still play Terry McLaurin. I I think it'll be worth playing all those Washington offensive players, but I also think Dallas is just going to rack up the points there. I think that's going to be a lot of points scored Thanksgiving Day. Look for that on the holiday.
Yeah, it's always good to have some good football games on for Thanksgiving. But I'm really excited for Thanksgiving morning this year. I'll be in a turkey bowl, as Jack was mentioning.
Nice.
But we kind of do something interesting when the fourth quarter hits. I mean, that's when we start to strip down just to our underwear. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this rule, but I know some people like to play shirtless, but in our Turkey Bowl league, we strip down to our underwear. And it's freezing cold, but it gets the job done.
Is this co-ed?
There's just no way I could stay away from this.
I'm not surprised, though.
Is it a co-ed football game?
Oh, no. Bunch of manly men.
Of course not.
So who was the first person that decided that they were going to take off most of their clothes?
This is like, what time should I be there?
That was a good one, Jack. Who came up with the idea? And is this in any way affiliated with a church?
I feel like
I just want to say, Chris, that this trend started in high school, and I went to a Catholic high school. So, guys too. So
exactly what I was.
Likes, baby.
Exactly what I was worried.
Catholic name Dom.
Yeah. And I have one last question here. Do we have one more segment, or are we kind of wrapping the show?
No, that's usually
wrapping up.
Yeah. I was sleeping again. So I want to know, Dom, is it Bijan or Bijan Robinson?
Bijan.
Please explain that to me.
Bijan, Bijan. I just thought of something. I'm going to reach out to him and maybe do some marketing for a new dressing, a salad dressing.
Okay. We're still on the air. This is still in the podcast, right?
Oh, man. To our viewers out there, please don't steal this idea from me. I know there's thousands of you. We have some viewers in Korea.
Well, there's at least 3 people right now who are going to know about it. But anyway, go ahead.
But yeah.
Give me the salad dressing recipe here that's going to make you $1 million. Go ahead and tell me. Go ahead.
So I know in Atlanta they like it a little spicy. So it's going to have some tang in it, some spice.
You're killing me. You know that. You're killing me. Go ahead.
You do so well in Atlanta.
Yeah, he will. We've got some friends that work for Delta.
Oh.
You'd fit in great at Delta.
I've never been to Atlanta, but I'm always interested in exploring new territories, as you guys know.
Okay, well, listen, let's wrap this fantasy football show before we get somebody in real trouble. So I'm gonna Jack is so mad. Look at him. He's like, look, this is ridiculous.
Talk about Tommy DeVito.
Yeah. Yes, we should be talking about Tommy DeVito. Yeah, I realized what that was. I'm like, what is he doing? Rubbing a booger in his hands or something? Now I know.
That was literally his touchdown celebration too. If you guys actually watched any football this weekend,
Seriously,
I didn't watch that football. But all right, Tom.
All right, as always, guys, thank you for tuning in each week. I'm kind of getting sad that the fantasy season's in the back half, but we're heading towards the playoffs, so definitely tune in for the next few weeks. We'll be diving into fantasy as always. Jack, Alex, JV, thank you for joining, and we'll see you guys next week.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Turkey Bowl.
Happy Turkey Bowl.